than any two-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. 2 Timothy 3:16-17. All Scripture is God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the servant of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. Psalms 119:105. Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path. James 1:22. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Psalms 119:9. How can a young person stay on the path of purity? By living according to your word. Isaiah 48. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of God endures forever. Jesus replied, blessed rather are those who hear the word of God and obey it. Luke 11:28. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Matthew 24:35. Philippians 2:14-16. Do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault, in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky, as you hold firm to the word of life. Jesus answered, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Matthew 14:4. Psalms 33:4. For the word of the Lord is right and true. He is faithful in all he does. Shall be praised. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word, which are being read in the hearing of our elect leaders. May they govern themselves accordingly, in keeping with the instructions contained in the Word of God. We thank you for your provisions, protection, guidance, and strength extended to all our honorable members, their spouses and children. Now we invoke the presence and power of the Holy Spirit to lead and guide our honorable members in their deliberations today for the good of our nation. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for leading and guiding our honorable members in the execution of the business of this honorable house this morning and all days. In Jesus' name, honorable members, praying together the prayer Jesus taught his disciples to pray, saying, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory, forever and ever. Amen. Our productive day.
Dr. Hubert Bennett, Peter Turquest, Brent Simonet, Desmond Bannister, Renwood Wells, Jeffrey Lloyd, Dr. Dwayne Stans, Marvin Day, Frankie Campbell, Dionisio Diaghilev, Michael Pentard, Darren Henfield, Romuald Ferreira, Lanisha Rose, Renzo Rose, Ellsworth Davis, Philip Davis, Vaughn Miller, Lakeisha Parker Edson, Iram Lewis, Carlton Boleg, James Aubrey, Travis Robinson, Adrian Gibson, Donald Sanders, Frederick McAlpine, Heinz Johnson, Mark Hume, Michael Pope, Miriam Refi Emmanuel, Reese Shipman, Reuben Raming, Ricky Mackey, Shannon Lon Cartwright, Charnel Ferguson, Glennis Hannah Martin, Heisel Forbes, Chester Cooper.
Good morning, honorable members, and good morning to all of you in the gallery. First of all, I want to welcome you back, honorable members, to this honorable place following our Easter break and the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We are 3 days after the resurrection and a few days after Earth Day. And the earth was given to us by the Lord to govern the affairs of this planet. I'd just like to say I'm a proud believer, and I'm happy that I can say he's alive again. He's alive again. The stone been rolled away. He's alive again. He's no longer where he lay. He's alive again. I can hear the angels say, let all the world rejoice. He's alive. Those were the words of one of my favorite gospel artists, Phil Driscoll. We have a beautiful contingent of the next generation of Bahamians with us this morning that I would like to recognize. Firstly, we'd like to recognize the water polo team that was very successful at the Carifta game in Barbados, Bridgetown, Barbados, from the 12th to the 14th of April. The information that I have said that the silver medal was won by the under 14 team, the gold medal by the under 16 team, and the bronze medal by the under 19 team. Now, I have a long list of names here. So what I would like for you to do right now, all of the members from the water polo team, can you stand for us? I'd like to recognize in particular Coach Laszlo. I hope I pronounced this right. Bobbly. You know, as a former athlete myself, I know how important a coach is to the success of an athlete in terms of its training, of the discipline, and the fundamentals of the sport that you are participating in. And so I want to congratulate all members of the water polo team on a very, very successful trip. I also would like to recognize, I understand that a number of athletes from the Carifta team, the swim team, are with us this morning. And our swim team, the information is that we have taken the 3rd consecutive championship at Carifta, the swim team. Can you, representative from the swim team? Okay, we also have a group from our tennis Fed Cup team, Mr. Sidney Clark, Mr. Kerry Cartwright, Sierra Donaldson, and Donnelly Thompson. Can you identify yourselves for us? We want to congratulate them. At this time, I will call on the Minister with responsibility for youth and sports, the member for Seabreeze, to bring greetings. You can have your seat. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Seabreeze.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, indeed, it gives me great pleasure to stand here this morning to commend, to congratulate, and to recognize the hard work of our young people that have represented this country so well during the the last 2 months in particular, and certainly I would have indicated to this House over the year, outstanding performances. And so, Mr. Speaker, without further ado, in bringing these congratulatory remarks, in my capacity as the Minister of Sports, I wish to begin by stating an instructive quote by one Billy King, who said this: "Sports teaches you character. It teaches you to play by the rules. It teaches you to know what it feels like to win and to lose. It teaches you about life." End quote. The Ministry of Sports was established to facilitate this avenue of learning, skill, and discipline, providing wholesome activities for our youth and ensuring their development into productive citizens who know what it means to work together, to accomplish a goal, and to win. This morning, Mr. Speaker, I am a proud minister. The Department of Sports is proud, and the government of the Bahamas, and certainly our people, are proud of the performances of our athletes during the 48th Annual Carifta Games held in the Cayman Islands and Barbados, respectively. Mr. Speaker, youth, sports, and culture are all interconnected, and these three components are vital pillars that undergird the development platform of our nation. As mandated by the government of the Bahamas, the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture makes every effort to invest in, to facilitate, to applaud, and to recognize the achievements of our young people and athletes, and who are virtually cultural ambassadors across the length and breadth of this great nation. It is through the recognition of their successes that we hope to inspire more of our youth to put their best effort forward in achieving greatness. Sports, Mr. Speaker, is an integral part of our culture, our cultural identity, our preservation, and our national development. I am proud to say that over the past few months, our young Bahamian athletes have accomplished nothing short of what may be termed greatness. In the areas of track and field, swimming, water polo, lawn tennis, and of special mention is the recent performances of our Special Olympics team, which was nothing short of exceptional. Carifta track and field. As many are aware, Mr. Speaker, this is the sport that includes athletic contests in the skills of running, jumping, and throwing. At this year's Carifta Games, Team Bahamas was represented by a small yet powerful team of 50 talented young athletes who took the Cayman Islands by storm. At the very outset of the competition, our athletes exhibited prowess and dominance that continued throughout all of the events. Our first medal at the Games was earned by Shanice Miller, who earned bronze in the high jump event and kick-started the avalanche of outstanding performances that followed and earned our athletes 6 gold medals and 3 bronze. One of these stellar performances came from Sean Miller Jr., brother of Shanice and our Olympian star, Shanae Miller-Ibu. Mr. Speaker, our athletes continued to dominate on the second day of competition, earning 7 more medals for their exceptional performances, with Anthea Charlton earning her 2nd gold medal after winning her first in the 100-meter the day before. On day 3, Mr. Speaker, our athletes pressed on despite the grueling competition they faced, earning 5 silver and 5 gold medals and bringing their total winnings to a staggering 26 medals, placing the Bahamas 2nd overall in the region. Mr. Speaker, I must also applaud the Bahamian public who continued and continues to support our Carifta teams on their journey, including my colleagues, the Honorable Minister Frankie Campbell and Acting Minister Frankie Campbell, who, Mr. Speaker, would have led the delegation on my behalf. Mr. Speaker, the Bahamas team and their coaches have demonstrated just a taste of excellence this country has to offer, in the years to come. I look forward to hearing of the exceptional achievements these athletes make and of those who inspire them and who follow their footsteps. Carifta swimming and water polo. and I think they'd like them to remain separate. Swimming, and then I'll talk about water polo. Swimming is an individual and team sport that requires use of one's entire body to move throughout the water. It takes place in pools of open water. It is one of the most popular Olympic sports, and quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, the Bahamas, being an archipelagic nation, really have every opportunity to win. And our swimming athletes did just that. They demonstrated that when it comes to the water, our seas are not only the most illustrious of the Caribbean, but in sync with that is the talent of our people. The swimming team, Mr. Speaker, returns today at 6 p.m., and as is custom, we will be there to welcome them home. Of note, Mr. Speaker, besides the planes that were chartered to take the teams, Mr. Speaker, Junkanoo Group, the Congos in particular, was commissioned to cheer them on in our cultural style. I understand that they were the center of the show. Water polo, Mr. Speaker, is a competitive team sport played in the water between two teams, so distinct from swimming that it has an individual component. Water polo is teamwork all the way. Mr. Speaker, other members of the team, Bahamas, also represented the nation at the Caribbean swimming and polo competitions in Bridgetown, Barbados. It's where they were, dominating the region and capturing its third consecutive, I want to say that again, capturing the region's third consecutive Caribbean swimming title. Mr. Speaker, special acknowledgement must be of our young Marvin Johnson, who not only swam 10 individual races and the relay events for the 11 to 12 age category, but demolished the competition, winning every gold medal available. Marvin has certainly established our Bahamas team as a force to be reckoned with. Also competing in Barbados at the Caribbean Championships was the Bahamas water polo team. This team has continued to establish itself as a regional powerhouse in Caribbean water polo, earning 3 medals for their second year with their stellar performances. This program has continued to grow in strength, and we commend the coaches for their hard work and dedication to these athletes, which has brought us this far. Lawn tennis. Tennis, as some may or may not know, is a racket sport that can be played individually or between teams of 2 players each, called doubles. Players use a tennis racket strung with a cord to strike a ball with the object of maneuvering the ball in such a way that the opponent cannot return or answer back. I say this all the time with my children who play it recreationally. The competitor who masters that skill through sheer strength, skill, and endurance is victorious. Our Bahamian young women were the next to take center stage, Mr. Speaker, certainly right here, I'm proud, with their sports performances in Lima, Peru, where a talented group of young ladies competed in the Fed Cup tennis tournament. These exceptional females, including Danielle Thompson, Sydney Clark, Carrie Cartwright, Sierra Donaldson, performed exceptionally well, fiercely fighting for each point during the team matches. Our girls remained undefeated, dominating every match until the final game against Team Peru. Ultimately, the host country held on to the claimed victory. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, Team Bahamas made their presence known and demonstrated resounding excellence. Mr. Speaker. Special Olympics. Special Olympics, Mr. Speaker, as we all know, was founded 50 years ago. It is the world's largest organization for children and adults with intellectual disabilities and physical disabilities, providing year-round training and competitions to 5 million athletes and unified sports partners in 172 countries. I take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to extend congratulations to our Special Olympic athletes whom we celebrated on their return from the 2019 Summer World Games in Qatar, United Arab. This international multi-sport competition witnessed 7,500 athletes from 192 nations that competed in 24 Olympic sports. Team Bahamas competed in 5 of these sports: athletics, swimming, box, bowling, and soccer, where they successfully won a total of 14 medals, 5 gold, 3 silver, and 6 bronze. These fantastic performances drew attention to the importance of ensuring that all members of the community are given equal opportunities to participate and succeed in all areas of society, including sports. Mr. Speaker, every member of Team Bahamas has demonstrated an indomitable spirit and a hunger for success, which is portrayed in their efforts each year. For many of these athletes, this marks their last year of eligibility to compete at these games. And behind them, Mr. Speaker, is a cohort of equally talented young athletes who are eager to follow the path of these trailblazers. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I must applaud all of the parents, the coaches, and officials who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the success of our athletes, in addition to the local sporting federations which support the ongoing development of the various sports. This nation's sports accomplishments over the years could not have been possible were it not for the crucial role our coaches played and their encouragement, guiding and uplifting our Bahamian athletes. I wish also to thank our #1 fans, Mr. Speaker, Bahamians everywhere, whose voice and message of support strengthens the resolve, I believe, of each and every athlete to give it their all, to give it their very best, every time, knowing that their countrymen are depending on them, and certainly we continue to root for them. Mr. Speaker, I wish to take this opportunity to acknowledge and commend all of the athletes throughout the region who participated in the 2019 Carifta performances. It is an event that continues to strengthen our unity as a region. Mr. Speaker, that being said, first overall in swimming, second overall in track and field, second overall in tennis, second overall in water polo, country of just under 400,000 people. I wish to extend our heartfelt congratulations to Team Bahamas, who in my absence was led, as I said, by Minister Campbell. But on behalf of the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, and by extension the government of the Bahamas, and certainly the people of this great nation, I say thank you to all of them. May the good Lord continue to bestow talent, success, and favor upon the government of the Bahamas and the athletes of our nation. May God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I thank you.
Introduction and swearing in. The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Thank you, Speaker. It'll be remiss of the opposition not to lend its voice to the chorus of praises being heaped upon our Bahamian athletes, and in particular this morning, those of the polo team, because we're not getting to my former exploits. But my interest in sports is well known and well documented. I can say that when polo was being organized for the purposes of water polo. Yeah, water polo. No, polo was in Camperdown one time, you know. But water polo, when water polo was being organized properly for the purposes of participating in international competition, I can say that I call him my stepson, Christian Illing, who migrated from Germany as a young man here. was one of the persons instrumental in that. And I followed it and kept abreast of what was going on with that. So it is really exhilarating to note that we have arrived to where we are today and have become the force to reckon with in the Caribbean. And I dare say that the chances and the hopes are there for us to become Olympic champions in not too distant the future. And I rely on Coach to see to that. So, Speaker, you know, we are here at what I call the end game. We are showering our praises and adulations upon these athletes who have achieved. I think the challenge we have is to realize the processes that the athletes have to go through to get to where they are to achieve, and to understand what we are doing to assist that process so that we could continue to have the kind of successes we are. I dare say that I'm troubled that the present regime is sort of seemingly reluctant. I can speak because I have, for example, most of the national teams that have gone off have complained about the responses that they've been getting. I urge you, Kalani, Prime Minister, to pay some attention to what is going on to the responses that's being given to. I say that to you, all right? I say that. And so that's I say, you know, Mr. Speaker. I'm saying, because, no, well, I take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, while we do that, I take this opportunity to raise the point. Right? I am doing that, and I've done that. And so, Mr. Speaker, yes, well, what I want you all to do is do the right thing to expose the Bahamas, like not canceling the international relays. That's what I want you to do. So yes, they are being exposed. So, Mr. Speaker, all I'm asking us to do is this, as I said, we are here glorying in the results. I'm only highlighting that the time has come for us to pay some attention to the processes arriving to the results. All right, and so, Mr. Speaker, we are here today discussing the polo team that's present and the tennis team that is here. And I'm happy to see that the Feds are back. And I say they are back because we have been sort of lagging behind in the tennis world. So I'm very appreciative and I'm very happy to see that we are back again in tennis. And hopefully from the next tournament, we'll be promoted to the next level and I'm sure that will happen if the girls continue with their processes. And here again, we need to encourage them, not just by lip service, by doing what is necessary to ensure they reach that next level. Right. And so, Mr. Speaker, I don't know, they have to tell me what I must do. I'm standing here in honor of the parents. I'm standing here in honor of the coaches. I'm standing here because I've been a part of that. I've been a part of that, right? And so, Mr. Speaker, for the polo team, for the tennis players, congratulations again to you all, to those of you who would have spent the time and efforts to ensure that these team members arrive at where they are. We thank you as well. And you can always depend on us to assist you in the process of gaining what is successful at the end of the day. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Introduction and swearing in of new members. Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Mount Moriah.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the Royal Bahamas Police Force Audit 2019.
What a shame. You can come back in now.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Mount Moriah.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the Commissioner's policing plan. That's the Royal Bahamas Police Force Reserve audit.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Gaming House Operators Amendment Regulations 2019.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Stamp Gaming Patrons Revocation Rules 2019.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Securities Industry Takeover Rules 2019.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. Chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Bahamas Registered Stock Act, Chapter 362, Bahamas Registered Stock Direction 2019, Bahamas Registered Stock Number 2, 2020.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House the Bahamas Registered Stock Act, Chapter 362, the Bahamas Registered Stock Direction 2019, Bahamas Registered Stock Number 2, 2022, 2024, 2026, 2029, 2039, and 2049.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following. The public holidays, Easter Monday 2019, opening of shops, notice 2019.
Order that the document be brought up. Order that the document do lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers.
Document laid.
Statements and communications by ministers. Communications by the clerk.
Speaker, report delivery of
Thank you, Honorable Clerk. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the Senate. Honorable members, I have in my possession from the Senate, the Honorable Senate, a message to the Honorable Speaker and members of the House of Assembly from the Honorable President and Honorable members of the Senate, numbers 25 and number 26. Order that the messages to lie on the table. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign seat, and new writs. Presentation of petitions. Presentation and reports of committees. Adoption of reports of committees. First reading of bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following. A bill for an act to establish the Aircraft Accident Investigation Authority of the Bahamas and codify the laws and regulations related to the conduct of investigations into aircraft accidents and incidents in the Bahamas or concerning Bahamian registered aircraft.
Is there a seconder? Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to establish the Aircraft Accident Investigation Authority of the Bahamas and codify the laws and regulations related to the conduct of investigations into aircraft accidents and incidents in the Bahamas or concerning Bahamian registered aircraft. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to establish the Aircraft Accident Investigation Authority of the Bahamas and codify the laws and regulations related to the conduct of investigations into aircraft accidents and incidents in the Bahamas or concerning Bahamian registered aircraft.
Further first reading of bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Mount Moriah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a copy of the following. A bill for an act to amend the law relating to the election of branch board members.
Is there a seconder? Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to amend the law relating to election of branch board members. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the law relating to the election of board members, or branch board members,
Further first reading of bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Mount Moriah.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to introduce and have read for the first time a copy of the following. Before I do, Mr. Speaker, I take note of an omission that I wish to have amended in the long reading title of this bill. A bill for an act to establish a body to be known as the National Crime, and crime is omitted in the long title that I wish to have amended, Intelligence Agency, to provide for its functions, powers, organization, and management, and for connected purposes.
Is there a seconder? Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to establish a body to be known as the National Crime Intelligence Agency to provide for its functions, powers, organization, and management, and for connected purposes. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Order that the bill be read for a first time.
A bill for an act to establish a body to be known as the National Crime and Intelligence Agency to provide for its functions, powers, organization, and management, and for connected purposes.
Further first reading of bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Speaker, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Securities Industry Act.
Is there a second? Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to amend the Securities Industry Act. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Order that the bill be read for the first time.
A bill for an act to amend the Securities Industry Act.
Further first reading of bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to provide for enhanced protection of minority investors, shareholder governance, and for matters connected thereto.
Is, honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to provide for enhanced protection of minority investors, shareholders, governing, and for matters connected thereto. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Order that the bill be read for first time.
For an act to provide for enhanced protection of minority investors, shareholder governance, and for matters connected thereto.
Further first reading of bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, there are no further first reading of bills. Mr. Speaker, I do now move that the House suspends for about 5 minutes so we can give the gallery an opportunity to exit and for us to be able to take pictures with our athletes and for the minister. Who was that?
Is there a seconder? Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do suspend for approximately 5 minutes. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. It is ordered that the business of this House stand suspended for approximately 5 minutes. Honorable members, when the business of this House suspended, we were at second reading and committal of bills. second reading and committal of bills. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Arnstown, or correction, St. Arns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, I rise to move the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Immigration Act to make provisions for the BH-1B visa, work visa, and the BH-4S visa to permit and also to provide for work permit exemptions for connected matters. Mr. Speaker, this bill was first laid in Parliament on the 27th of March this year. The bill itself, for the purposes of my address this morning, I'll divide into two parts. The first part deals with the whole question of the BH-1B and BH-4S visa, and the second part deals with exemptions to requirements for short-term work permits. So there's two distinct issues in this one amendment bill this morning. The BH-1B visa, and if we look strictly at the bill, talks about a work visa biometric card granted in condition in section 30B, and BH-4S deals with a biometric card in terms of section 30C, and it refers to a biometric card means one that contains biometric data, digitized fingerprints, machine-readable facial images, machine-readable biological data, digital signatures, etc. Whilst the bill goes into those details, those are the details that are required under the new process of getting an immigration card. So that any of those, a work permit, permanent residency, etc. So if you apply for a work permit card under the new computerized system at immigration, you will find that they require the biometric details, the facial images, the machine-readable data. So all of those issues with regard to the technical side are in place at the moment with the new cards. And any of you who've seen the new cards, you'll see it has a higher degree of security features in it. The question of dependent, also in the bill, talks to a person who is under the age of 18 and between 18 and 22 is here with regard to full-time instruction at a school or undertaking training in a professional or vocational services. So those issues too are part of the dependent definition that is currently in the immigration bill. So I'll just focus at this point on the BH-1B and the BH-4S. BH-1B is the primary immigration card or visa, which applies to the principal employee or the person working. The BH-4S deals with the spouse and the dependent. So for instance, in a normal case, a person comes to work for TBS Limited, the dominant person, whether male or female, will get the immigration work permit, and then if they have children or a wife, the spouse, they will get subsequent permits with regard to allow the wife to reside and the children to reside. So there's nothing new in that scenario. That's been going on, spouse. That's been going on since the Immigration Act started. So you bring in the main person, if they're married, a spouse, and dependent children come in on a spouse or a permanent to reside basis. So that gives them legality for being here. So nothing's changing with regard to that system. It's put in this bill. So what we're talking about here is a new type of visa, the BH-1B visa. Now, as in the definition section, is pursuant to a grant of a specified commercial enterprise certificate under the Commercial Enterprises Bill. So the BH-1B visa is tied back into the Commercial Enterprises Bill, which was passed here some time ago. And the idea there is to deal with certain industries that are in the schedule to that bill. Now, many of you will recall that the reason we went we passed the Commercial Enterprise Bill was to attract industries on the whole and by and large that are not here in the Bahamas already. So we talk about computer programming, we talk about software design, bioinformation and analytics, data storage and warehousing, nanotechnology. These are some of the industries that are included in the schedule of the Commercial Enterprises Bill. By way of a background to this, shortly after the F&M came into government, the Ministry of Office of the Prime Minister in Grand Bahama looked at the whole question of creating in Grand Bahama a set of new industries that would further the development of employment and employment opportunities for Bahamians. So shortly in November, I think, of 2017, there was a Grand Bahama Technology Summit, which brought together a number of persons, not only from the Bahamas, but also I think people came down from Atlanta, Georgia. I think some people came from California, to Texas, and the Minister of State for Office of Prime Minister in Grand Bahama was able, along with his team and the Office of Prime Minister, to bring people from around the world, several of whom were Bahamians who are working in these industries overseas. I think one worked for Google, and working in Silicon Valley. Bahamians who are contributing to the computer industry around the world. They came back to the Bahamas, amongst others, and offered their information, their benefits. And I know the member for Central Grand Bahama will talk, I think, today later on. Out of that came a tech hub steering committee, I think was the sort of the loose name for it, which consisted of persons such as Donovan Moxey, Gershwin Major, Kirsty Powell, Dr. Ian Rowe, Paul Winder, Jason McDowell, Dr. Ian Strawn, Damian Blackburn, and others, who were, I think, the hub of that committee, if I remember correct. And they drove a consideration of where we're going with tech. And the idea was to create a tech hub for Grand Bahama. So in that, what would that do? It would be a significant contribution to the economy. It would include Bahamian companies, not only international companies, but Bahamian companies in this whole mix. And it would support the development of knowledge in tech, business, and other knowledge, and develop and create a whole new industry in our Bahamas. And we would also try to go from there to reposition the Bahamas as the tech hub in the Northern Caribbean, if not outside of the larger jurisdictions that we know. Why the Bahamas? Well, why the Bahamas is very simple. We're a tax-neutral jurisdiction. We have proximity to the United States. We have a B dollar pegged to the US dollar. We have a very fast internet in Grand Bahama. We have available office space, available retail space, etc., and that list goes on. And we have, of course, hotel rooms to provide for backup for this. In so doing, and when we start to reposition Grand Bahama and other areas as a tech hub, that also brings with it, you know, we can call it trickle down, we can call it whatever we like, but it helps with real estate, it helps with retail, construction, transportation, business tourism, because they're all part of this growth of external new industries into the Bahamas. So the H-1B visa, the idea was to recruit U.S. companies whose America has an H-1 visa. So we were trying to recruit those companies, particularly in the United States or elsewhere in the world, but particularly in the United States, whose visas were about ready to expire. So for instance, and also brand the BH-1 visa as a Bahamas tech visa. The U.S. issues about 65,000 to 85,000 H-1 visas per year. The president says he's going to restrict that number. About in 2017, approximately 199,000 people applied for those visas and were gobbled up in 4 days. That's the background. 199,000 persons applied for some 65 to 85,000, and they were gobbled up in 4 days. And where is Grand Bahama? 50 miles, 55 miles off the state. Right there. So I'm advised if you take that projected economic impact over a 12 to, let's say, 18-month period, and let's say we attract 250 companies at 500 people, alone that would result in $10 million approximately in immigration fees for the predominant work permit holder, and some $2.5 million for the spouse and or children. It would result, if you took an annual salary of $86,000, because this is an industry that salaries are traditionally fairly high. So $86,000 wouldn't be far off. My daughter's in this business. She's in the United States. There's no role for her to come home. She's a computer expert in financial services business. So I have first-hand experience. I'd love her to come home, but there's no job for her here because we're not creating that technology here yet. And her salary is, I know what her salary is, so $86,000 is way more than mine. Way more than any of us here. So if you take that $86,000 odd as a sort of average, it will mean some $430 million in salaries which will be generated in the Bahamas. And if you took that down to the level that affects national insurance, it'd be some $16.5 million in national insurance alone. Full stop. It would create probably, if you take an estimate of between $300 and $325 million in investment in the Bahamas annually through housing, transport. These people wouldn't have to have housing, they'd have to have cars, they'd have to have food, there'd be education, which would make the member for East Grand Bahama, the Deputy Prime Minister, very happy, because that would turn into approximately $24.4 million per year in VAT. So I hope I've laid there in very short order and shown the need to promote the Bahamas as a tech hub. So the committee came back to the government and they made some recommendations. Create a strategic plan. Done. Improve the ease of doing business. We're in the process of doing that. You can see people here in the gallery who are constantly saying to the government, ease of doing business. And we have bills, I think, today, tomorrow, or just laid today, that will help with the ease of doing business. So that's in a process. Improve the monetary policy to allow a flow of investment income in and distributions out, free flow of capital. You've seen the central bank has been working on that. We've been easing the whole issue. Bahamians can now have accounts overseas, free flow of dollars, and so on and so on. And also in that whole recommendation, create a BH-1B visa. So this came out of the steering committee as a result of the Grand Bahama Tech Conference that came to us and said, look, we think you should do this. So it's against that background that the government decided to lay this bill today, debate this bill today, so that the BH-1B visa would apply in those industries to attract tech hub in Grand Bahama, and by extension it could be Nassau, it doesn't necessarily be Grand Bahama, and create new industries that we do not currently have in the and grow the economy, which was the purpose of the Commercial Enterprise Bill. The idea of the Commercial Enterprise Bill was to allow persons to come in with a certain amount of investment. They applied to government, just to refresh our memories, and they got they prepared a business plan which said how many people they were going to employ, how they were going to train Bahamians, how they were going to progress from non-Bahamians to Bahamians, so on and so forth. That permit was good for, I think, 3 years. They came back to the BIA, Bahamas Investment Authority, showed how they were getting on, and they got their plan renewed. Now, there was a slightly interesting part in that where maybe the opposition wanted to take issue with, and did take issue with then, that we had a provision in there that in the event that immigration did not issue the work permit within a certain number of days, the permit was deemed to be issued. It was 14 days. And would be issued for 3 years. That was our way of attracting business. At that stage, when I first took over immigration back in May of 2 years ago, the delay in work permit acknowledgements was unacceptable. I can say without contradiction today, we have got that down. So the last agenda I looked at for immigration was, I think, the 15th of April. So we're down to within about 3 weeks. On the whole, if you're applying in April, you will get your reply in April for those persons who have, and this is a caveat, very easy, for those persons who have used an email address. It's taking slightly longer for the post office. That's another subject. Another subject altogether. So, in September of 2018, we were able to process 78% of the persons who applied for a work permit in September. We are getting better. We're down to about 3 weeks. It should be less than that. And the aim back then was this same 14 days that is in these bills, so that you can apply and get your permit. Now, one of the reasons that's happening is A, the computer system was installed, which is great. But that computer system requires you to submit at the time of submission all documents. Every document. Otherwise, your entire application is rejected. Which means that, which has happened over the years of immigration, you send it along to your friend up on the 3rd floor. It doesn't have a stamp, it doesn't have a check, it doesn't have a photo, it doesn't have this. It sits on their desk. So for instance, the other day I found a check up there dated 2015 that hadn't been put in the system. That's unacceptable. But that wouldn't happen under the new system because it would be rejected on the ground floor at immigration and not accepted. So technology, this tech issue we want to do, this computerization of the government services, which the Prime Minister through his Department of Information Technology is starting to do, is beginning to work. I'll give credit where credit is due. The system was ordered by my predecessor. I've been lucky to have done this in Immigration and Passport Office twice in my life. Twice in my life at Immigration. He did it the second time at Passport Office, where my predecessor left the computer in place and we were able to bring it online and what did they play the long game, get the touchdown. So that is working. So hopefully within the next couple of months, we will have work permits down to under 14 days. That's work permits. We have now taken, now if there's a problem with it, if there's a police report or whatever, some of those fall off the runway. We are now taking, as of this month, permanent residency and citizenship live on that computer, which is a great step forward. And I'm diverting slightly, Mr. Speaker, but it says the same principle. If the documents are not there and complete, they will be rejected at source. And 9/10 of the problem we're having with permanent residence and citizenship and immigration is that the documents were never submitted in complete form at the beginning, so there's a document lag. So if you take the Immigration Commission, for instance, it does children born in the Bahamas, apply between 18 and under constitutional entitlement. We have caught up to the last, I think we're down to 400 backlog. But there are thousands we are still looking for persons to get their documents in. So we can only process as fast as persons are bringing the documents in. I say that by asides for those that are listening, that you feel you have documents that are outstanding, please call the people at Immigration and make sure you have your documents and we will process you. 400 is the backlog that we currently have ready for the Commission. All documents in place and everything else. The Commission meets every 2 weeks. We've processed, I think I'll be taking to Cabinet if it gets on the agenda, 205 names that have been approved by the Commission, which is I think the second or third tranche since the Honourable Member for Killarney instituted the Commission, which acts completely independent of me. I don't even attend the meetings. I don't know when they attend, who they deal with, and they just produce these people under that constitutional entitlement provision, and their names came out. And that provision you'll see in another bill that's out for discussion. So, Mr. Speaker, it's against that, I just segued for the immigration issue. So those persons who do have immigration issues, please feel free to email me, because we need to know, and in a lot of cases we don't have contacts for people. It's general delivery, no answer, they've changed their cell number. I mean, you know, there's a lot of reasons. You mean no answer to immigration? No, please email me directly, because we'll look at it, and please take that seriously, because that backlog is what we have to deal with, where a lot of people who are hurting and really needing, deserving, and wanting of their citizenship. I just segued on that. The B1B visa is very clear. It's a tech visa. It's issued within 14 days. The immigration doesn't get back to you. You have to have a certificate granted under the Commercial Enterprise Bill. So this is just not any Tom, Dick, or Fred that turns up. It's specifically under the Commercial Enterprise Bill, and the Commercial Enterprise Bill has in there, and I'll just go over for completeness, a schedule that has captive insurance, reinsurance, mutual fund administration, arbitration, wealth management, international trade, international arbitrage, computer printing, software design and writing, bioinformatics and analytics, marine trade, nanotechnology, biomedical industries, boutique health facilities, data storage and warehousing, aviation approved maintenance operations, aviation registration, call centers, manufacturing or assembly centers. So therefore, which section 4? Yeah, I'm coming back to that. So I'm just laying the groundwork so that, approved by the Commercial Enterprises Bill, so you're ready under that act. You come in for a BH1 visa. It's granted within 14 days. Immigration has the right, under the Commercial Enterprise Bill and this bill, to revoke your immigration permit on the grounds of misrepresentation, criminal activity, public national interest, and so on and so forth. So if a person fraudulently or maliciously, deliberately, whatever, gets a permit under this section, we retain the right to reject that. Revoke. Thank you. Revoke that permit and ask you to wrap up your affairs and bye-bye out of the country. So that's the BH-1B visa, the BH-4S visa, substantial person, the spouse and dependents, under the Commercial Enterprise Bill. The second part of the Act talks about a change in Section 32 of the Immigration Bill. This, I no doubt from social media out there, will provoke discussion today. The idea here is to create what has been called the Trusted Traveler Program. This was a program that we discussed with the Bahamas Financial Task Force, AIBT, a number of persons in the financial industry, a number of persons generally, members of the bar, was an attempt to make sure business travelers, now I'm going to try and lay out what is intended here, and wherever rhetoric and whatever you want to take from here is a different issue. The idea here is, and it's no change in the Immigration Act. The Immigration Act has allowed short-term visas, ever since the Immigration Act was, or a letter of no objection, which happens regularly. So for instance, for years, immigration would write Atlantis and said they have no objection to their chairman, director, shareholder, lawyer, etc. coming in. At one point, immigration were writing those letters per trip, and I said, this is ridiculous. So we started to give persons a per year letter. So they'd rock up to the airport, they'd show their letter, yes, let's say Mr. Kroc, as head of McDonald's Corporation, you'd be coming in to see the franchisees here. You don't need a short-term work permit. You're clearly coming in to look at your business. That was the intention. Now, you end up at the airport with immigration officers with discretion. And there we get into a gray area. So this TPP, Trusted Travelers Program, has been in effect for quite some time under my watch. has had no real difficulties. So what it does is, so for instance, the other day I came out of my office of immigration, there's a head of an officer from one of the very large banks here coming to get a no objection letter for his chairman from Switzerland to come to the Bahamas to attend a meeting for a bank. And I said, you don't need it. He says, I am getting it so the immigration officer at the airport does not give hassle to my chairman of the international organization of this very large Swiss bank. And I'm like, O.M. I said, you don't need it. Now, I won't tell you the number of times people have called. The head of an airline for the Caribbean came to one of our islands to talk about increasing the airlift for that airline to Grand Bahama. The immigration officer, because there was no policy legislated, told him he needed a work permit. He said, give me my passport, let me get back on my plane, and I went back to Miami, and you see what happens.
No extra.
No extra. Recently we had one of the senior officers for the Grand Bahama shipyard taken into secondary questioning. That cruise ship is about ready to invest millions of dollars in Grand Bahama because he didn't have a short-term work permit. Coming to see the officers at the Grand Bahama shipyard, of which his cruise ship line is one of the large shareholders. The list goes on and on. I get calls regularly, and I have to say to the immigration officer, no, he does not need a short-term work permit. So here we are trying to be an international financial center, a tourism center, and we sit there and say, you can't come in, you need a short-term work permit, get back on the plane or get in secondary questioning, and we want to develop the Bahamas as an international organization. We have to wake up.
This won't be competitive.
So we have people coming in here for conferences. Do they need short-term work permits? Conference business is big business to the hotels. Atlantis, we big business in Grand Bahamas, big business at Bahama. So we can't say to those people coming in for conferences, you need a short-term work permit. That would be ridiculous. Or the person coming in to give the talk. So we have, let's say, the head of, I don't know, some doctor from the head heart institute in the world comes in. You're saying to him, before you can come in and give a lecture, you need a short-term work permit.
Or priests coming in to say mass for the weekend?
We have persons who are coming in for trade shows. Same idea. So in other words, a number of trade shows are happening. There's the bridal show, this show. You go to Vegas. What does Vegas do? Vegas is a trade show hub. You know, whether it's the latest phone, the latest gadget, this thing, that thing. You can't say to those people, you need a trade show. Now, traveling salesman, that's different than coming in for a trade show. That's clearly coming in to work. You require a work permit. Okay? Then you have the non-executive directors of businesses. So I'm actually in example 32A of the non-executive officers. So in other words, Sol Kersner when he owned Atlantis. He needs a work permit? I mean, this is the mischief this section is trying to deal with. Now, then you have the section which probably some persons would like to have comment on, attending businesses with a local company in the capacity of chairman, director, shareholder, chief executive officer, chief operation officer, chief financial officer, consultant, legal counsel, compliance officer, account auditor, actuary, medical professional, controller, analyst, and manager. Now, the idea here, and let's be clear from the get-go, is this is to come in to meet with a local company and get back out. So in the case of lawyers, this is not someone who can come in and meet with Brent Simonette's chambers, do a case in the Supreme Court, avoid getting a work permit, and go back out. No. The chairman comes in. I think no one should have a problem with the chairman of a foreign company. A shareholder comes in, chief executive officer, a chief financial officer, an accountant, for instance. This is not meaning that the person can come in and do the audit for a company and go back out. The bill here is clearly, as is defined in the Commercial Enterprise Bill, the definition of in-house professionals is meant to be a person who's rendering professional or advisory service to a specified company, a local company here, and the intent is not to take away competition, not to be in competition or take away work from Bahamians. Now, so you're going to say, mischief, I'll come in for 2 weeks, go out for a day, come back for 2 weeks and avoid this thing. The officer at the airport will see your stamps in your passport. At that point, he says to you, work permit is necessary. So when this is abused, it will be in your passport, because everyone apart from us, and hopefully you all use the automatic system, has to have a stamp in their passport that comes in here that's not a Bahamian. So when like for instance, I went to London the other day, they say, Ma, you come to London a lot. I say, yeah, because I fly through London to go to other places, and then they're happy, and they let me go. But you see, if you come in on a regular basis, let's say, and try and do work here, in competition to a Bahamian, immigration retains the right to cancel that application and make the appropriate notation in the computer system. We could tell you at the airport, for instance, that your permanent residency is expired with the new computer. We can also tell you your work permit's expired. So we have that when you come in and you scan your passport, it's popping up to the immigration officer. So if they're seeing you're coming in abuse of this issue, it will be consequences to follow. Now, let's put the two together. We are trying as a government to develop the Bahamas. 80% of our business, our GDP, and 15% is tourism, and 15% is financial services. Who controls the majority of those industries? When Atlantis first started, I was Minister of Tourism at that point when they first opened. It is fair to say that probably 80% of the casino workers, probably higher, were non-Bahamian. If those of you can remember. A lot of the croupiers when Atlantis first started were, trust me, a lot of them were foreign. Nowadays, you have seen a drop down in those number of persons. And you'll find that 90-odd% are now Bahamians. Cat Anna might argue about the date. We say over time, fine? It doesn't make any difference. But the point I'm making is to attract the larger investments. For instance, we would give a certain number of work permits. To attract Bahama, Mr. Christie and his government gave between 5,000 to 8,000 Chinese visas to build a hotel. And his government. A part of the heads of agreement. They always claim that Bahama is their deal. There's no part, unless she can correct those details. No, because, fortunately, I was the one that issued the permit, so I know how many we gave. There was between 5,000 and 8,000 under a head of government.
Honorable member, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member Ferguson on a point of order.
Thank you, Speaker. I think the member for St. Anne's is a bit confused, because if he issued these certificates, could not have been the Christie administration. In fact, this was an initiative or a policy position of the then Ingram administration, in which I believe the member served as Deputy Prime Minister. And we went into a division of a vote in this Parliament. We were in opposition. It was the Free National Movement administration that brought about the policy and heads of agreement position with up to 8,000 work permits. And if the minister issued those certificates, it could not have been the Christie administration, because we didn't have you on our side at that time.
That was after you all started negotiation. So the point is that we have decreased over time. Speaker, I'm not yielding on that issue. We have decreased over time. She's made her...
The member's on a point of order. What are you requesting
I'm requesting the member to correct the record, because the introduction of 8,000 work permits for the Chinese workers, construction workers for Bahama, was an initiative and a policy position and the heads of agreement was executed with the Free National Movement government, not a Christie administration. We were in opposition at the time, Mr. Speaker, and I'm asking the member if he would just correct the record. I'm not going to, I'm being a fight you on that, you know.
Oh.
that the Bahama deal was a FNM deal, I'll gladly correct that record. But you will find that the Christie administration was there beforehand, and the Ingram administration met negotiations in place, and that came as a result of that.
I recognize the honorable member for Angleston.
I think the member's memory is really very faulty on this.
It's not.
The introduction, or the first heads of agreement was signed with the Christie administration.
Yes.
At that time, you had Harrah's, the casino and all of that. At some point, and it was attributed to actions by this administration, Harrah's pulled out. The developer ran into a crisis and had to turn to the Chinese to assist in the development. When we were involved, there was no Chinese in the picture. But he ran, and then there was the recession. The developer ran into a crisis. And as a result of that, this administration, the then Prime Minister, went to China. He physically went to China. We were in opposition. This administration, and the members should just, we don't need to be coy about it. Are you saying that come on now, let's just be sincere to the facts. This administration, the Free National Movement administration, brought the 8,000 Chinese to the Bahamas.
Result, Mr. Speaker, of promises and debates and negotiations in the original heads of agreement that resulted, that said there would be sufficient labor to do this development. So those issues, that is what it was.
Speaker,
That is correct.
The member should recall, Mr. Speaker, because he sat in this parliament, he was Deputy Prime Minister. That issue came to this parliament. The then Prime Minister wanted to bring it to this parliament. It was this parliament that agreed to the 8,000 Chinese, and it was the Ingram administration, it was the Free National Movement. This member was Deputy Prime Minister. And so he should not say that what happened was a result of any negotiations with the prior administration, because it was not. There was no anticipation of Chinese workers at that time, Mr. Speaker.
There was an anticipation of sufficient workers being available to do the project. I'm not being dishonest, that's what it was. So she is entirely correct, we brought it here. Because it was in those negotiations that there were representations that in the event workers were not available here, persons would be allowed to be brought in. We can leave, we can come back to that issue, but the issue is, the issue is, Mr. Speaker, let me just,
Honorable member,
the issue is,
on a point of order.
I'd just like to finish my sentence first. The issue is that persons were allowed to come in to build the hotel because there was not enough Bahamian labor here. Now I don't disagree with what the Honourable Member Engelson said. We did come here with a division. That part of the heads of agreement was that there would be sufficient workers here. That is...
Chair
there was foreign workers. You were not... I didn't say that.
Honourable members, the chair recognizes the honourable member for Cat Island, Rumkins and Salvador. On a point of order?
Yeah, well, the point of order is this, Mr. Speaker. The member conveyed quite clearly to Parliament and to those listening that the Christie administration, right, gave 8,000 work permits for Chinese workers. That's the message he sent. The fact of the matter is, please, if I may, the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, was that a heads of agreement was in fact entered into in 2005, right, the Christie administration for the development of Bahama, right? That required the developer to have a strategic partner, right, who was well experienced in the casino operations. That casino operator was identified as Harrah's Caesar's Palace. They had engaged and work had started. Right? Harrah's, I think, was going to bring about $400 million to the table. That was the deal. And it was in train. We lost. The Bahamian people voted us out. As is customary, the stop review cancel policy kicked in. As a result, Harrah's pulled out. I have the letter. The letter was laid. I laid the letter on this floor, Mr. Speaker. I laid the letter from Harrah's on this table. I laid the letter that was written by Harrah's, Mr. Speaker. I laid the letter in this Parliament, and we could find it if we have to. So all I'm saying is, and it threw the developer into a tizzy, right? As he was attempting to right his ship, the recession, as the member for Angleston took it, and that was not led to harass, right? It came after. And then, Mr. Speaker, the developer went about scrambling to save his project, having himself invested close to $300 or $400 million in it, right? And then a new heads of agreement, a restated heads of agreement was added into.
Honorable member,
Which included.
the member has indicated that he's prepared to correct the record.
The issue of the Chinese voters came here, yes. There was provision in the original heads of agreement for adequate labor to be supplied. That's my point. So to correct that issue, that's the point. Let the record reflect that. And as a result, as a result of the new developers, the Chinese, they came here, and the result was needing between 5,000 and 8,000 Chinese workers, and we came to the House and we did that. That accurately reflects then the issue. So the issue that I was making is, as a result of these heads of agreement, we resulted in a number of offshore workers being here. We resulted in the same issue with Atlantis. So we rely in this country on direct foreign investment. That's one of the things we rely on very heavily. So for instance, thousands of jobs, it is fair to say, came out of Bahamas as a result of a number of offshore workers being here to build Bahamas. The same thing happened at Atlantis. We are seeing gradually over time Bahamians replacing those non-Bahamian workers in a number of these areas. So when, for instance, we brought the Commercial Enterprise Bill into operation, we had a number of companies that came to the Bahamas, one from in the Caribbean, and we gave them, I issued 29 work permits for executives to come here. They started up their business here. They bought millions of dollars of assets here. They created a number of jobs here. Shortly before I demitted office the last time, the FNN demitted office, I did the same thing with another company who started in a quarter of a floor in a building, and they now have a floor and a half in the building, employing a number of Bahamians. So the point I'm making here is, whilst we have to and do introduce non-Bahamian workers, we do see as a result a trickle-down effect in most industries, in a lot of industries, that have created a better Bahamas. This is no change to the immigration law than the original immigration law was permitted, which granted the minister, or the government through the minister, the application of those areas. So we should look at this section, I would suggest, whilst some may feel we're allowing people in the back door. That is not what the Commercial Enterprise Bill does, and I've tried to say that to you today. The amendment to allow for short-term work permit for persons coming in without short-term work permits, I've suggested to you what we're trying to do. I've suggested to you, and also that if there's a mischief involved, those persons can be prosecuted, can be denied entry, and so on and so forth. So whilst there is an initial potential fear of what avenue this is going to open up, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest here today that the mischiefs we are trying to correct by allowing persons to come in for short-term purposes, to do advisory work, conferences. On the whole, for instance, most persons come to the Bahamas, I think Minister will suggest, for about 5.7 days is what people come to the Bahamas for. So the 14 days is excessive. It's never going to be used. If it's seen to be abused, it will be changed. So therefore, you know, we have to find a way, and this is a way of developing our country and creating extra offices. So for instance, the whole issue of the cruise industry. I know some persons will, the issue of Carnival, but I'm not discussing that. Today's paper had a full page, both papers, the Guardian and the Tribune, had a full page ad for Bahamians. This happened to be the Tribune, but I know it was in the Guardian. from AC technicians, electricians, electronic engineers, upholsterers, Shorex, inventory, lifeguards. This is what we have to do to develop our Bahamas so our children can have a future. I mentioned, Mr. Speaker, about my daughter. Hopefully under this H-1B visa, she can come back as a proud Bahamian and work for a company in a job that is not existent here today. That is what we are trying to create. That is what we are trying. I didn't say
Honorable
she did.
member.
She's a Bahamian. She only has one passport.
Honorable member,
Yes,
you made reference to newspaper.
Oh, sorry, newspaper. This particular copy, Mr. Speaker, is a Tribune, Wednesday, the 24th of April. But it was
Are you going to table?
Yes, yes, I lay it on. There was a copy in the Guardian as well. So but the purpose of was to show that in terms of development by Royal Caribbean, for instance, in the case of Cocoa Key, David. In the case of Cocoa Key, you're seeing an opportunity for many Bahamians to get work. By extension, if we develop Grand Bahama as a tech hub, you will see the ability for many Bahamians to get jobs, to grow the economy, to create new industries. And likewise, through the Trusted Traveler program, by asking persons and not being too overly defensive about the work of the immigration officers, will allow persons to come into meetings, will create businesses. So for instance, there's one on here, biomedical. I had an opportunity to meet with a significantly wealthy person who is thinking about the potential of doing an investment in Grand Bahama in diabetes. So that means when he comes in, he has to have a short-term work permit. We can't be that restrictive. We have to allow persons to come in without them getting a bad taste at the airport because the immigration officer, in his discretion, may have suggested he needs a temporary work permit. So that is the idea behind this second half of the bill. With those comments, Mr. Speaker, I move the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Immigration Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Just before the seconder, the newspaper advertisement referred to by the Honorable Member for St. Anne's is page 12 of the Tribune, Wednesday, the 24th of April 2019. Order that the document be tabled. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for North Abaco.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in this place, as we say in the church, on no strength of my own, but on the strength of the Most High and living God, in whom we live, breathe, move, and have the very existence of our being. Mr. Speaker, North Abaco rises to second this bill, which is before you. But just before I do so, please indulge me a moment to say something to my constituents in Grand Key, who expected and anticipated that I would be with them on a long weekend, and I could not get there because of the weather. Well, you know, your intelligence, Mr. Leader, is very good. But you know, Sandy Point is an easy since 1992. Sandy Point is an easy drive from Dundastown. Very easy drive. very easy drive, you know. Very easy drive, but they say, you know, former North Abaco didn't do anything. I've heard them say that. But a very easy drive, and my mother-in-law lives there. And so I determined to go there and spend some time with her on the weekend while I was trying to get to Grand Key. But Mr. Speaker, on Easter Monday, we had a wonderful time on the beach in Treasure Key with the children and their parents who came to celebrate Easter with us on the beach. I mean, the numbers were extraordinary. And so for that, I want to thank the organizers, Ernie Pritchard and his wife, and Stephanie Heel and the rest of them, who worked very hard to ensure that the children had a good time swimming and enjoying themselves on the beach in Treasure Key. Another beach done by my predecessor in North Abaco. Cabana and everything, right? A wonderful beach. But on a sadder note, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to extend my personal condolences on behalf of myself and my family, and on behalf of the Prime Minister and the government of the Bahamas, to Stephanie and Ripper Heald of Treasure Key, who will bury their son round about the 4th of May. And to say to Stephanie that we continue to pray for her and her family, and that my wife and I anticipate being there with them as they grieve in their hour of bereavement. We'd also like to extend condolences to the member for North Andros, our colleague and his family, on the passing of his father. It's critical when you lose your parents. I'm still, after 2 years, grieving the passing of my mother, whom I love very dearly. And so it's critical that we continue to support him in this, and this is hour of darkness. Now to the matter before us, Mr. Speaker. You know, Angliston understands and appreciates the collective responsibility to be shared, as she sat where I now sit. But, Mr. Speaker, the bill before this House, as outlined in its objects and reasons, seeks to amend the Immigration Act, Chapter 191, to provide for the BH-1B work visa and the BH-4S permit to, among other things, cause the Commercial Enterprises Act of 2017 to be more attractive to the type of enterprises and companies we wish to invite and continue to attract to come to the Bahamas, and specifically to Grand Bahama. Mr. Speaker, it's no secret. In our 2017 manifesto, we promised that this minister-led administration would establish Grand Bahama as a technology hub in the Bahamas. And we did so for many varied reasons. We realized and appreciated that the ailing economy of Grand Bahama could no longer sustain itself in the condition that it was in and the condition that we found it in. We realized, as indicated by the mover of this bill, that Grand Bahama has all of the necessary amenities and facilities that would be able to attract technology companies to the Bahamas and to establish them to work. And so as such, our government has continued to take concrete steps toward growing the technology hub in the Bahamas and, as we say, in Grand Bahama in particular. Mr. Speaker, to accomplish this objective that we've set for Grand Bahama, we turn to some of our best and brightest minds in the technology arena, both inside and outside of the Bahamas. You know, a lot of people from North Abaco are either resident in Grand Bahama or have relatives that live there. And so, as a North Abaco boy, I'm honored to be moving, to be seconding this bill, which we hope will inspire more confidence in the economy of Grand Bahama. And so, in the result, Grand Bahama, we established a technology hub steering committee that was formed in December of 2017 with the sole purpose of designing a roadmap to establishing Grand Bahama as a respectable technology hub. As we realize this area of endeavor and expertise is growing all over the world. I think most say that we are in the 4th industrial revolution, which is going to be based on technology, and we're going to have to keep up with the rest of the world. And we saw this too as being a part of that effort and thrust. We know the Minister of Education is working assiduously in the schools to to get our kids, even as they creep and begin to walk, so that they too can become immersed in the world that they would have to face and focus in the future. The committee, as indicated by the minister who moved, my learned senior, and who treated with the law fantastically, so I wouldn't have to go into that. The committee was composed by key stakeholders from both the public and private sectors. These people who lives in this world of advancement and technology, and who insisted that we do something as a government legislatively to bring the Bahamas more readily into that arena that we see as being so necessary and so lucrative. This committee has been actively with the government, working with the government toward growing the technology industry, and that effect to, among other things, to diversify the Bahamian economy. Mr. Speaker, for too long now, Bahamians have been complaining about having just tourism and the banking industry to rely upon. And so we realize, like some smart person said, I think it may have been Einstein, if you keep doing things the same way, you will never get a different result. And so we didn't come here to do business as usual. We came here to change the economic trajectory of the Bahamas and to put it on a stable path. Governments after governments after governments of the Bahamas have continued to hear how we have to do something to diversify the economy. And for one simple reason, you know, these industries that we rely upon so heavily, like tourism and banking, can be very fickle, because they depend in most part upon the international economic situation. We saw in 2008 what happened to the Bahamas and to the world when the international economy ran into challenges and crashed. And so we are seeking to diversify this economy. We've talked about farming. We've talked about improving on fishing. And these things are still with us. And we still have to find a way to get Bahamians interested enough to be able to go into these industries, because, you know, we're spending billions of dollars annually importing food, and we have the ability, we believe, and we know the Honorable Michael Pintard is absolutely focused on doing what he can to improve farming in the Bahamas and protecting fisheries for Bahamians and food security, as I'm reminded by my honorable friend. And so we cannot continue to rely on tourism and banking to fund the economy and to fund the life that Bahamians have become accustomed to living, a life which is second to none in the Caribbean region. I don't say that as a means of bragging, but I say that because it is true. Our dollar is 1-for-1 with that of perhaps the greatest superpower to have existed since the Roman Empire, right to the north of us, the United States of America. And so we have to do more, we believe, and this bill, which we have placed before this honorable house today, seeks to do just that. And so this immigration amendment bill is a realization that we have taken seriously the advice of the committee to remove as best we can the oft-times cumbersome bureaucracy and red tape encountered by investors seeking to obtain work permits for pivotal personnel to come to the Bahamas and work. Another point I'd like to make, Mr. Speaker, before I move on, is that in this government we don't believe that we possess all of the intellectual acumen and ability that we need to cause a country to properly function. And so what this led administration seeks to do as often as we can, is to engage the private and public sector to come in and make input. I always wondered how a candidate looking to be elected to the Parliament, the House of Assembly, would come to my house and listen to me. And then as soon as he's elected and enters these hallowed halls, He understands he's the fount of all knowledge. And understands, and fount of all knowledge and wisdom, and understands everything. The only thing that reminds me of that is the talk show pundits that I hear from time to time on the radio, who has all of the answers for every issue ever raised. And so when we set out to do this, we invited the experts who would speak to us about how do we raise up Grand Bahama from the ashes, like the phoenix, and cause it to soar again, like when it used to be called, Pine Ridge, that's you? Like when it used to be called the Magic City. The Magic City. I'm old enough to remember those days, Pine Ridge. And by God's grace and strength and constant effort, we're going to see Grand Bahama again, fulfilling its true potential. The Prime Minister says that on every occasion he gets an opportunity, that so goes the economy of Grand Bahama. So goes the economy of the Bahamas. And so that is our vision and goal. That's why we're not afraid when they criticize us for doing things that are innovative and different and securing the Grand Lucaya. We don't criticize us because we could not afford Grand Bahama to see again in its history another catastrophe as we saw occurred earlier with the Princess Towers and that whole area there. And so we acted in the best interest of the people of Grand Bahama and the people of the Bahamas, and I believe today we continue to act in that interest. After all, Grand Bahama sent many of us here to this place, and we have an obligation and a duty to do no less. Mr. Speaker, this government is firmly committed to making it easier for Bahamians, not only foreign people, for Bahamians as well, to do business in the Bahamas. It's far too difficult. And you heard the minister speak to some of the issues that are faced by those who come and try to obtain a work permit in the Bahamas, or serious business investors who come to the Bahamas and are layweighed sometimes, unintentionally, you know. Sometimes these are just unintended consequences of what occurs. And they're held. I personally spoke with such an investor who said to me, I think we were in New York at the time, said to me that one of his very senior executives was placed in a holding room by immigration and not allowed to leave until he had to have some executive level intervention to cause him to be, and that's no way for us to be known to be doing business. Not in this modern era in which we find ourselves. And we are not afraid, Exum and Ragged Island, to do what we think and act in the best interest of the Bahamian people by doing what we do. We go boldly into that good night. Boldly into that good night. Because we will transform this Bahamas. That's the mantra of Prime Minister Minister's administration. A transformational government. A transformational government that will leave the Bahamas and see it as it has never before been seen. That's our hope and our faith and our prayer. But you know, the Bible says that faith without works, that's a dead thing, man. You know, the master passes by and you're sitting there by the lake. That's not the time, eh? Is that the time? No. Okay. And you're sitting there by the lake. No, man, that can't be the time. And you're sitting there by the lake, and the master passes and asks, would you like to be made whole? And you sit there and say, there's no one to put me in.
And what does he say? Get up.
Take up your bed, man. And so what this minister-led administration is doing is we're being bold, we're taking up our bed, and we're going to walk, and we will not shrink back in the face of criticism, because we take bold steps and initiatives to improve the economy of the Bahamas. and to do what we believe is necessary, not what is always popular, but what is necessary in the interest of the Bahamian people. That's why we put in an airport in Exuma. Well, Lucha, you know you straight, man. you know you straight, Lucha. But in Exuma, because we realized the potential for the people in Exuma to move that tourism product to where we would like to see it. It will have proper airport facilities, proper space to entertain these massive numbers that we are now seeing in the tourism industry coming through the Bahamas. And you say Kalani ain't doing nothing? Who says that? Kalani ain't doing nothing. For the first time since 2008, we are now seeing an improvement in the economy of the Bahamas. Man, I ain't come here to row, you know. We saw growth in yeah, man. I hear these jabs about the Prime Minister's visits into the family islands, because he's doing something for the first time in the history of the Bahamas that any other Prime Minister has done. And as an island boy, right? Does he follow him around? Man, I hear he was in Sandy Point, you know. I hear he was in Sandy Point. Sandy Point to me is that. Oh, PM, that's why. PM, you know. See, you'll never be a leader. You're always a follower. Prime Minister, you know the leader of the opposition continues to follow you. Continues to follow you. And so he comes in to see what you've done after you've left. But I hope he had a good fish meal like we had on Good Friday. At that wonderful place there on the beach. So, Mr. Speaker, we are of the view that this amendment to the Immigration Act will enhance greatly the opportunities provided under the Commercial Enterprises Act, passed in this place on the 22nd of November, 2018, by this transformational, I want to say progressive, I have to say progressive, and progressive government led by the member from Kalani.
Look at Bob rubbing his hand, man. Progressive get him excited.
You like the progressive, Bob? You know, they had a slogan one time, they said, "Step now into the new frontier." The leader of the opposition can acquaint you with that. But you're old enough to remember that. And so recall, Mr. Speaker, that the Commercial Enterprises Act came about to improve our efforts to establish the very lucrative technology industry in the Bahamas. That's why we did it. We thought that we could attract industries that were not before existing in the Bahamas. We didn't think, nowhere in our mind and in our policy when we looked at this initiative, that we would be endangering the existence of Bahamian jobs or Bahamian employment. And we don't seek to do that even today whilst amending this bill. All we seek to do is to make it easier for these people with expertise and professionalism that is not readily resident in our country to be able to come and not frustrated when they come to invest in the economy of the Bahamas. And so what we do today is not just to grow our economy, but it's to also engender and nurture the transfer of knowledge and enhance learning resources and greatly improve the opportunities for professional development of Bahamians in this lucrative and growing industry. And that's why we attached in the Commercial Enterprises Act the provision that people who come to the Bahamas to participate in these industries must have a plan that involves and includes Bahamians. And that plan has to be approved. That plan has to be approved. So it's not an open floodgate for anybody to come and act as they will and do as they please, but it's something that we will monitor, because we believe that these opportunities will be available to young Bahamians. You know, we went to Houston. We went to Texas the other day. The Prime Minister led a delegation seeking to to find out the interest that may be in the Bahamas and to say to the world, really, that we are open for business. And this government is looking to attract more foreign direct investment into our economy. Sometimes we often chide foreign direct investment and say what we will and will not do, but that has been a stable part of our economy for a very long time, even though it's often denigrated and put down. But I don't know how you can denigrate and put down something like Atlantis, which the F&M administration in 1992 got a lot of flack for, right? Why are you bringing these people in? And now we see Bahama, what it's doing, and other lucrative and active companies in the Bahamas. And so this Commercial Enterprises Act, which we've attached these visas to, will grow a part of this industry in young Bahamians that we've not yet been able to do. And so we were in Houston, in Austin, I believe, Prime Minister, and we were meeting with all of these tech giants. And one of them produced games, games that kids play, you know, these hand computer games and what have you. And they said one of the challenges that they have is that they can't produce these games fast enough. That's the demand that the world now places on this type of technology, that they can't produce the games fast enough, right? And so we thought, what a wonderful idea, that if we could attract some of these companies to the Bahamas, and they're able to inspire and train young Bahamians who can stay right there in Grand Bahama and be able to help to produce these games which are in such high demand all over the world. What a wonderful thing that would be. And that's the purpose of why we're here today. That's a part of the reason why we thought it was necessary to listen to the committee, the steering committee, those experts who advised us, who advised the cabinet and the government of the Bahamas that this is the way to go. That this is the way to go. Behave yourself and stop causing mischief. You got your own problems to worry about leadership. You think they can sit idly by and let you trot down? A little older than you know. Stay right there. You better go on back. So leave him alone. Leave him alone. Right? Yeah. And so, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister realized that there was a great worldwide demand for qualified people in the technology industry. And that's what this is about. Individuals to participate in that industry. And so, in that delegation, we met with a lot of tech giants. And I think they call themselves the Silicon Hills, because you know California has, in Texas, California has what they call Silicon Valley. And we have this dream and vision that we can make Grand Bahama the Silicon beaches that we know it could be. Yes. That's our dream and vision. Yeah. And so hence the creation of the BH-1B work visa program, which also seeks to fill a gap and a lacuna left by the recent immigration policy of the United States of America. And we heard the minister who moved this bill speak to the notion that the H-1B visa in that country is given to these people who are specialists in the field of technology and other areas. And we understand that the United States has now used a policy where they put a cap on the amount of, they've limited the amount of these visas that they will allow to be granted in that country. And so if the United States has put a cap on the amount of visas that they will allow to be issued in that country under this head, we thought, here's this word again, as a progressive government, as a transformational government, that we could take advantage of that gap or that lacuna because we are predispositioned to do so, geographically and otherwise. Because we're just 30 minutes or so off the eastern seaboard of the United States, where some of these big technology companies reside. And so why can't we invite them to come to Silicon Beach, Silicon Beaches in Grand Bahama, and work in their flip-flops and T-shirts and cut-off shorts as they do in California, in a wonderful, clean, and beautiful, pristine environment, You want to say something? I'll yield to you. You want to say something?
Thank you for yielding.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Pine Ridge.
Take advantage. One of the issues, Mr. Speaker, since I because yield, I don't think the concern is so much about whether or not we can improve technology in the country. The fear that people have is that they feel that in the Bahamas, the Bahamians are taking a back seat. Nobody's running from globalization, but we're feeling that we're doing it at the expense of losing Bahamianization, or Bahamians are becoming extinct in their own country. And so we hear what you're saying, but we're trying to find the balance, because a lot of people feel at the end of the day, they are being shoved out, and Bahamians feel like they're being pushed aside when it comes to this issue of immigration.
Well, the purpose of this legislation, Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this legislation is to oppose that absolute feeling that he says that Bahamian and theirs. I don't hear that when I go around in circles that I move in. Now, that stuff I hear on the talk shows and on the social media. But that stuff I don't hear in the circles that I move in. I hear Bahamians being inspired about the economy under the minister's administration. That's what I hear about. I'm going to leave the script now, because I see empirical data to support the fact that we have had growth, that we have had growth in the economy. Remember, we don't want to go back to these things, but we have to remember what we found when we came to office in 2017. You know what we found when we came to office in 2017, Pine Ridge? We found 4 downgrades and an economy that would not move. An economy that was stubborn, could not move. Could not move. Negative growth. And so you come here to these Howard halls and you act as if this happened overnight. But let me educate you. The economy of the Bahamas was stagnant since 2008, when we had the international downturn. And in 27, negative growth. I wish I had those figures here with me, Prime Minister. And in 2017, we start to see incremental growth. In 2018, we saw over 2-point growth. Man, I don't believe that's 2 points this year. I believe that's more than that. When these figures come in from tourism and what we're doing in that arena, when the figures come in from the investments that the Prime Minister announced in South Africa, when these figures come in from the things that we're doing in Grand Bahama, in Eleuthera, Disney. Listen here, man. I went to Abaco on the weekend, and I could hardly find space to move in the airport. Could hardly find space to move in the airport because of the people in there. Let me give you PMD's growth. GDP growth in 2012, 3.1. No, man, I ain't got time for that. I on the floor now. When you get up, you say why. You the economist. You the economist, not me. When you get up, you say why. In listen, man. In 2013, 0.6% growth. 0.6. No growth. On the other side of the horizon. No growth.
What did they meet there in 2012?
Man, they met a booming economy. An economy that they gave the F&M credit for establishing. Complained about the roadworks, and then what they did? They went and increased borrowing to complete the roadworks. Okay, let me get back to this before my time goes. And so this committee has identified, Pine Ridge, has identified the change in U.S. policy as a major opportunity for growth for the Bahamas through the implementation of our version of the H-1B visa. Because we will capture the many of those qualified professionals who are now left. I can't finish after lunch because I got good stuff here, Yeah, that's okay. I want to talk about what this minister administration is doing to improve Grand Bahama. Yeah, let me take my time with this. Don't rush me with this. Let me take my time with this.
Refresh.
Right?
Chair recognizes honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, at this point in time, I think we'll break for lunch and be back at 3. And so I do now move that the House suspends until 3 p.m.
Is the second? Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do suspend until 3 p.m. this afternoon. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. It's ordered that the business of this House stand suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.